Right, UFC 272 breakdown and preview. Looking forward to this one. Elliot, how we doing, bud?
Doing well, man. Probably my most favorite pay-per-view of the year so far.
Really? Think so? There's a lot of people saying, is this even pay-per-view material? But you're going in there guns blazing saying it's most excited for it.
Hey, I love storylines, and this is like the perfect story between Colby and Masvidal. There's no bigger fight to make at the moment, I think.
Yeah. So one thing that we've spoken about the past couple of events was, have the UFC done a good enough job of building them up? Do you think they have with this one?
Well, I think so because it's mainly about the main event. As great and fantastic as the athletes are below the main, there's a storyline that's already made, and people forgetting how big of a star Masvidal is. I recently looked at the statistics, and he's like outside of McGregor, he's like the second most popular active fighter. Him and Usman broke like their first fight broke over 1 million pay-per-view buys, and that's kind of no people not really taking notice of that. And I think that's pretty big.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, it's something that Jorge mentioned. I was watching his interview with ESPN MMA just last night, lagging behind a little bit, but he was saying how he doesn't think Kobe needs to do the things that he's been doing to promote fights. You know, obviously the trash talk when he first started it in Brazil, and this sort of personality he's built up. Jorge kind of thinks he's went about it the opposite way. He said, just be yourself and actually come to fight, and people will pay to see you fight. Whereas he says people don't pay to see Kobe fight. It's just the talk that does it for him, and he doesn't really appreciate that, which I think is sort of fair enough. But it's interesting that we've got the two sort of clashes, but they've both come together and landed in a main event, which not many people can do without a title being on the line. So I think they're both probably doing something right. But what do we think about this whole storyline then? Do we totally buy into it? So I want to ask you a question to get things off the bat, because this is something that annoys me a little bit when it comes to these sort of rivalries, obviously, particularly in combat sports. And the perfect example is Kobe's last fight against Usman. All the trash talk, all the hatred. As soon as the fight's done, it's all love, just making money. Best of luck to you. Do you think we'll see that after this fight? Do you think they'll shake hands afterwards and it was all maybe a bit of a show?
No, I don't think so. I think this rivalry's been kind of brewing for quite a while, and it seems like even without the UFC's interference, they didn't like each other. It's not to sell a fight, or maybe they don't not like each other, but they've gone their separate ways, and they know the business. But I don't think they're going to be like Usman and Colby, where they're going to shake hands after or whatever.
Yeah, I hope not, to be honest. I mean, are you in the same boat? Does that sort of ruin it a little bit for you when you see that afterwards?
Yeah, because you don't want to close the kind of book on it, because say if it's a really close fight and they still say there's a bit of afters when the final bell goes, you want to see it again.
Yeah.
There's money to be made in fights now. You can do more than one. I don't want to see them be all like friendly afterwards, especially how it's been like. I'm not too sure if you watched the Masvidal interview about how he wants, like he said to Colby, "Oh, what do you want?" He spoke to a journalist about Colby. Sorry, they said, what do you want? What do you want the papers to be? What do you want the papers to say after the event? It's like Colby in critical condition, might not make it.
Yeah.
You can't say that and then be all friendly afterwards.
No, definitely. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I haven't seen as much from Kobe, I don't think, unless I'm, maybe I'm missing the boat or something a little bit on his interviews. But I've seen a couple out there. Obviously, he often speaks to Submission Radio. He done one a little while ago. I've seen him speaking to Kevin Iole, but I don't feel like he's been as involved in this sort of build-up. I haven't heard as much. To put it this way, I've seen more quotes from Masvidal than Kobe. I haven't seen a lot said from Kobe, but maybe I've just sort of missed out on what he's been saying. But I mean, the press conference, before we get to the fight press conference, I mean, you could sell the press conference, I think, as $10 a head to watch it online. I think you could sell decent numbers for it, because that is going to be crazy. I know the two have already went at each other a little bit. They both did an interview with Stephen A. Smith and went sort of back and forth on that one. I hope the press conference is as good as it can be. There's sometimes I feel like they waste it a little bit. There's one example with Corby is when he was fighting Tyron Woodley. It was sort of like a baby version of this story they've got now, the former teammates and split from the gym, blah, blah, blah. There was a story there with Tyron. And I was thinking, this press conference is going to be great. Going to be interesting to see what they both say. And the UFC separated them. They didn't let them do the press conference together. They did Tyron separate, they did Kobe separate. And then, just didn't really sell the fight. Obviously, that's not going to happen with this one because it's a pay-per-view. they're going to do a proper press conference. But I just hope they let them feed into it a little bit. Sometimes you see Dana sort of cut people off a little bit when it starts getting a bit rowdy. I think maybe ever since the sort of Conor Khabib days where it got a little bit weird, I think nowadays when it's going on a bit too long and they're talking the trash, he tends to cut it off a bit more now and say, right, next question. But yeah, I hope in that this press conference, that I think it should just be them two. Just let them two just run wild, ask them some questions and go crazy. Yeah, you're going to be tuning into that one.
Oh, 100%. It'd be interesting to see what avenue they go down, because do you remember the last presser between Colby and Usman? It got a little bit silly. Colby's normally, I know he's normally quite an enthusiastic character anyway, but sometimes he can be quite intense. But the last press conference wasn't at all. It was kind of silly, and we had a lot of the journalists trying to trying to capture the banter themselves, which is a pet hate of mine.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I don't even know the guy's name, and even if I did, I wouldn't give him the courtesy of naming him. But the guy in the pink suit, I think everyone knows him as. Just trying to egg them on and ask Colby about his broken jaw and things. I get it, but leave it to the fighters to talk the trash if that's what they want to do. You're not there to sort of get involved and have back and forth for the fighters. It's just it's unprofessional. But yeah, it's I think when it gets to that sort of silly point, like you mentioned with the Colby Usman one, it loses its sort of seriousness a little bit, doesn't it? Like it loses that intensity. I would much rather there was, which I think we'll get a bit more with Colby and Jorge, the sort of actual, bad blood intensity. They both want to hurt each other, not the throwing catchphrases out there and bickering with the media and egging the crowd. It's a different type of vibe, isn't it? There's fun, but then there's like intense, and I think intense is a lot better. And I think Conor used to do a really good job of finding that sort of balance of obviously getting everybody up and getting some laughs, but he would also have that sort of undertone where he's like, I'm coming in to take your head off. That's what's going to happen, and try and be intimidating. Whereas, as you say, in like the Corey Usman one, for example, there wasn't that sort of tone to it at all. It was just kind of bit of a circus, wasn't it? So prediction wise then, is it fair to say that this one is as simple as a striker versus grappler?
No, I honestly don't think so. I've been looking through the statistics and things like that, and where a lot of the easy route to go down is Colby's going to wrestle him, or Masvidal's going to knock him out. Where Colby is only been dropped by two people. Oh, sorry, he's only been dropped in two fights, and they're both against Usman, which we kind of see there's this crazy power, And I think Masvidal's got kind of like immaculate takedown defense, regardless of what people saw against Usman. I think that he's got like a takedown defense of like 75%, something crazy like that. So it's I think it's less about wrestling versus striking and more about cardio versus power. Because I think, as we've seen before, Masvidal's cardio is not the greatest thing you've ever seen, whereas Colby's cardio is pretty good. So I think it's going to be if Colby can avoid the power and if Masvidal can land. I think it's going to be more like that. I don't think we're going to see as much wrestling and what people might expect, but that's just a personal kind of view.
Yeah. No, and just to touch on that cardio point, because I think people could misinterpret that a little bit, where you say Masvidal's isn't the best and Colby's really good. I don't think that's a knock on Masvidal. Obviously he's got good cardio and he's been 5 rounds, but Colby's just that sort of next level, it seems, isn't it, when it comes to cardio? Like he can put on a ridiculous pace and he can do it 25 minutes, no problem, which I think is the biggest reason why he's come closest to beating Usman in the UFC, is because he's the only person that's been able to keep going, as hard as Usman was. Whereas, Masvidal, not that he's got bad cardio, but I don't think he's quite on that level or quite known for it like Colby is. I'm sort of inclined to agree with you. I don't know, it's a tough one. I was watching the interview, Mike Brown, Jorge's coach, obviously Colby's old coach, and he said that he wasn't really trying to keep it secret or anything. He said he expects Colby to wrestle a lot early. He said that there's only ever been 2 opponents he's not tried to wrestle, and that was Usman, who's obviously an unbelievable wrestler himself, and the other one, Damian Maia, who's obviously an unbelievable grappler. But he said anybody else, Colby's always tried to relentlessly take him down, multiple times around. That's his game. So from Colby's point of view, it would surely be stupid to try and stand wire. It just doesn't seem like there's anything in it for you. So I definitely think he'll try to get the fight to the ground. So the biggest question becomes, as you mentioned, can he get the fight to the ground? You spoke about the 75% takedown defense. So it's not as easy as just saying safe options to take him down. So I'll do that. Sometimes doesn't work out that way, and we've seen with Usman. What did he fight Usman for? Like over half an hour. I don't really remember many takedowns. He maybe got him down once or twice and didn't really get to do much, but I don't really remember Usman having much success, which is obviously why that first fight ended up being a lot against the cage, which wasn't the funnest to watch. But so I think the biggest question for me is, can Colby get him down? So I personally see the fight sort of going Colby trying, probably not being too successful early on. But then, as we mentioned, with the cardio, I think the longer the fight goes on, he'll start to have more success with the grappling. And obviously, Jorge is a better grappler, and he does knock people out, but he's not that sort of brute, I don't think. I don't think it's like one shot and he'll catch Colby and he's done. So I just don't think Jorge is going to be able to get enough off on him in between the takedown attempts to do enough damage on Colby and put him away. But obviously could be wrong. But for me, I see this being a decision for Colby, with him just having more success as the fight goes on. What do you make of that one? How wrong am I?
No, I mean, there's so many different avenues you can go down with that. But yeah, I think Usman touched on it in an interview with ESPN, where he said about they're both going to be surprised with each other about how hard they actually are. Mm-hmm. He said again, Masvidal is really hard to take down, whereas Colby's a really relaxed striker, which you kind of think it's going to be the other way around, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. He said they're going to underestimate each other in their own departments. So if that's the case, it really could be a surprising fight. Yeah.
No, that gets me a bit excited, actually. Yeah, I'm buzzing for this one. It's really interesting. So, and I mean, we could go on all day about the backstory, but I think everyone knows about that. So, yeah, a lot at stake here. Talking about the aftermath, then. I know, you're a fan of. You put that little piece together for us on a weekend about what could be next for the winners, what could be next for the losers. We get a little sneak peek from you. I know you're sort of putting you on the spot a little bit, but just sort of off the top of your head right now. For Jorge, he's already lost to Usman twice. So let's say, for argument's sake, right now, Jorge gets the win. What do you think could potentially make sense for him next? Do you think he could jump back into a title shot anytime soon, or do you just think that's not on the cards anymore?
That's not on the cards anymore because of how the last one ended. Mm-hmm. I think there's nothing to build on. The first one was like, oh, okay, Masvidal didn't train long enough and, things happened, whatever. There's surely going to be money fights available, but in the world, it is going to be really hard to kind of paint Masvidal in that title picture again, or anywhere close.
Yeah,
maybe Burns, but Burns has got Chimaev next, and that'd be an interesting one. I really don't know. Always said I'm always surprised that the UFC never went down the McGregor route with Masvidal because of the star power, and they can try and meet in the middle somewhere maybe in terms of the weight. That really surprises me because the money's there. And Masvidal's probably away from his away from his prime, talking about this perspective of like stardom. I think that was the Till Askren era. Now it's a little bit beyond him now. I really don't know. I can't see anything happening major.
No, it's a tough one because we still don't know what's going to happen with Usman either. He's out for a while. Hopefully back in the summer. Then is he going to fight Leon Edwards, or somebody else going to get in there? Is the winner of Chimaev Burns going to get in there? So yeah, it's tough to see how the division's going to go at the minute. And then I guess you got the same question for Colby. If Colby wins, how likely is he to get a title shot in the near future, or 2 losses to Usman for him as well? Will he need to do something else a bit more spectacular?
I think. A win for Colby would mean he should beat someone else than the Usman fight, because if he beats the winner of Burns, Chimaev, or I don't know, whatever happens to Leon Edwards, if say he fights Leon Edwards for whatever reason and beats him, I think you can build a third title fight with Colby, but you can't do it with Masvidal because Colby took rounds off Usman the first time, but he'd need to show something like, say if he absolutely dominates Masvidal and shows a new side of him, you can certainly build a new storyline with that between him and Usman.
Yeah. Right, so what I'm going with then, I'm just figuring this out while I'm talking to you. So we're going to do the winner of this fight Saturday night, they're going to fight the winner of Burns versus Chimaev for the next shot at the winner of Usman versus Edwards. Are you with me? So Usman versus Edwards next for the belt, because Usman's going to have to wait a few more months for his hand to heal. So meanwhile, the winner of this fight versus the winner of Burns Chimaev to decide who gets that next shot after Edwards. Is that the plan? No, you're not with me?
Oh, now you mention it, I think Masvidal Edwards has got legs to it because of the beef.
Yeah.
But you can't justify Masvidal title shot. I'm a massive Masvidal fanboy, but I can't see him. Why would people be interested in a title fight between him and Usman when Usman's knocked him out and dominated him the first time? There's nothing to build on there.
So even if Masvidal beats Corby, and Corby's only been bested by Usman. So if Masvidal goes and beats Corby, then Masvidal beats, let's say, Khamzat Chimaev after Chimaev just destroys Gilbert Burns. You don't see any title shot for Jorge after that.
If he goes on an absolute run, destroys Colby, then fights again, destroys Khamzat or Gilbert Burns, yeah, that's when a title fight can occur. There needs to be a reason. There needs to be a reason. Just a normal win performance doesn't really take it. I mean, I don't want to kind of like talk ill on another fighter, but when I think there was a time where Michael Chiesa was talking about a title fight, and everyone was kind of surrounded saying, "Oh, it's not a bad idea," but he didn't show anything like to kind of put him next to Usman. He's a fantastic fighter, of course, but there's no like storyline like a casual can jump onto saying, "Oh, what if?" I think the what if is the main thing in title fights. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's the most important thing as opposed to just wins. Now, I think there needs to be a narrative.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to quickly change people's minds and build the story after a big performance. Just look at Jorge's couple of knockouts over Till and Askren. If he was, I'm going to say he was nothing before that because he's in the UFC for a while, he's in Strikeforce, but he was nowhere near getting people excited about being a top contender and going on that sort of amazing run that he did. So yeah, I think it's all up for grabs, isn't it? Big performances needed. Let's hope that this is a I don't know the word I'm looking for, but we want sort of a definitive finish to this fight, I think, don't we? Especially after all the build-up that's going to happen. We don't just want sort of a close, timid fight and then, maybe they'll do it again. And no, I think somebody needs to come out and make a statement after the 2 losses to Usman. You got to do something pretty special. So, yeah, fingers crossed for that. And then we'll see what happens with the rest of the division as time goes on. We know that you can't really plan too far ahead in the future of MMA because fights will fall out and new people will come up and things. And, we got Vicente Luque versus Bilal Muhammad, 2 guys on massive win streaks as well. So the winner of that fight's got to be in the mix. Obviously, Edwards is undefeated in 11 fights or something. So some top guys. Lots going on. But maybe Kevin Holland will rack up a few wins by then. He won 5 fights the other year. So maybe, but we'll come to that in a moment, I suppose. But yeah, anything else you want to add for that main event then, or do you think we covered it?
I think we pretty much covered it. I'm super excited. It's one of my favourite fights in the last few months,
Yeah. Always makes it better when it's in an exciting division as well, because you can't help but think about all the possibilities, and it's so big for the winner, so big for the loser as well. So yeah, lots at stake. Look forward to that one. Let's quickly, don't know what we'll call it these days. I think the plan is still for it to be the co-main event. We'll sort of touch on the situation. No doubt by the time anybody sees this show that talking, it might have changed again. But just a quick update on the Rafael dos Anjos fight. So RDA was talking to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour show yesterday, which was Monday. In the middle of talking, Ariel breaks the news that Fiziv's out with COVID, so that fight's off. RDA says he still wants to fight this weekend. He's put a lot of work into making the 155-pound limit. So obviously he did go back to welterweight not too long ago. So he's back at lightweight. He's put all that effort in. So he didn't want it to go to waste. So a couple of names flying about. Islam Makhachev said that he'd fight him at 170. RDA didn't really seem too keen on that. I think he probably felt like he was giving Islam a bit too much of an advantage by letting him be bigger. He thought, if you want to fight, you can come down to 155, which I've been working on. But again, I think we'll probably find out more about that situation soon. But Tony Ferguson was in the mix, Paul Felder was in the mix. Looks like Moicano has got the fight for sure. It's just actually been made official just a few moments ago. So his management's confirmed it. Ariel Helwani, ESPN, anybody that needs to confirm it's confirmed it. So the co-main event will be RDA versus Moicano, 5 rounds as well. I believe it's going to be at 165 pounds. Is that right? So yeah, fair play to Moicano. Not quite making 55, but willing to fight RDA for 5 rounds if it's needed. Any quick, immediate thoughts on that matchup? Do you think it's a good move for RDA? I feel like it's probably quite a winnable one for him, or what do you think?
Yeah, certainly quite an easier task. I don't like using the word easier because it kind of disrespects the opponent, Moicano. But I think Moicano has picked up a bit of hype as of recent. I'm on his record now where I remember he kind of like ran through Alexander Hernandez.
Yeah,
quite recently, and there's a lot of hype around him. So yeah, we haven't seen RDA fight in quite a while. It feels like so. I think it's kind of a win-win for both fighters.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's an interesting one. It's one of them where we haven't quite seen what this version of RDA is capable of, but we also haven't seen what this version of Moicano is capable of as well. So again, another big fight, a big statement from either one of them, puts them right up there in the mix in the lightweight division. So yeah, definitely interested in that one, and we'll see what happens there. So yeah, I'm glad he's still fighting anyway. It would have been a shame to lose him. Obviously, a shame not to get the Fiziev fight again, but hey ho. But yeah, happy to still have that co-main event. So look forward to that one. Right. So we're not going to break down the full card because every time we try and break down a full card, the fights get cancelled and it becomes a waste of time. Same happens whenever we sort of interview fighters as well. We just seem to be cursed, really, don't we? But never mind. So let's pick out one more fight that we're looking forward to. And hopefully when it comes to Saturday night, it'll still be happening as well. So you go ahead and get started, Elliot, on one more fight on the card that people need to tune in for.
I mean, Kevin Holland versus Cowboy Oliveira is the one to watch. Kevin Holland, regardless of whether he's against the wrestler, he's going to be funny. He's going to be unique. And now he's got more of a standing opponent. I know Oliveira can take it to the ground if needed, but it's a favourable opponent for Holland. I think it's fair to say, less of a wrestler, and it's going to be fun. Cowboy always brings it, and this is Kevin Holland kind of committed to welterweight now because before he was always dabbling with middleweight, but he was kind of quite of a slim middleweight. It's gonna be super fun. I'm always excited to see Kevin Holland fight.
Yeah, prediction for that one, or you're not too sure? I know it's difficult to say, isn't it?
I'm gonna go Kevin Holland by decision.
Nice, fair enough. I'm gonna stick to the main card because we're casuals, but I'm gonna stick to the main card for this one and go Edson Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell. I love this matchup. We sort of alluded to it a little bit for the main event, but it's not the same, but it is that sort of striker versus grappler matchup. Edson Barboza, I think it's fair to say he's probably one of the best strikers in UFC history. Certainly got one of the best highlight reels, that's for sure. Plenty of spin and back kicks and fun fights from him. Never quite been able to make it at the top, but he's right in there in the mix, and he's looked really good at featherweight. Obviously, he had a tough performance against Giga Chikadze, but we all know how good Giga is. But yeah, in general, Edson's looked great at featherweight. So he's going to be taking on the young killer, Bryce Mitchell, who's undefeated. That's I have no idea how this one's going to go, to be honest. Again, it's a little bit like when we spoke about almost every other fight that we spoke about, to be honest. It's how good is this version of Edson? How good is this version of Bryce? We don't quite know. I think it's particularly a bit more of Bryce, what he's fully capable of. But this is the opportunity for him to show it. He's 14-0 undefeated. He's got quite a bit of hype around him because he is a unique personality. UFC definitely push him. Hopefully he's got the camo shorts on. I know he's been asking Venom for them. Not sure if he will. But yeah, this is an opportunity for Bryce to show how good he is. If you can put Edson Barboza away, that puts you in the mix. He's probably looking at a top 5 fight after that. And for Edson, he's getting to that stage in his career now where he can't really take too many more losses, especially consecutive losses. So, like we say, after that pretty brutal loss to Giga, he doesn't want to come back and get finished by Bryce as well. So it's a big fight for him. Any predictions for that one? Or again, I know it's tough.
I'll probably look at Mitchell by submission.
Mm.
It's gonna be hard. Yeah, that one. It's because there's such a big deficit between Barboza's striking and Mitchell's striking, and Mitchell's submissions versus Barboza's submissions. So yeah, but I'm going to go Mitchell by finish. What about you?
I'm going to go Mitchell decision for that one. Yeah, I think as much as we don't think of Edson as a grappler or a submission specialist, I think he's shown really, really good takedown defense. He's really strong. He's big for the weight class. It's tough to get down and pretty tough to keep down as well. So I feel like Bryce will probably have some troubles with him. No, it's not the same fight, but I remember when Edson fought Makwan and Miyakani, and it was a similar sort of matchup where you think Makwan's really good on the ground if he can just drag him down and probably sub him. Didn't pan out like that at all. Edson was just far too strong. He couldn't get him down. And then obviously when you're stuck on the feet with him, it's an absolute nightmare. So I feel like, Bryce is obviously, I think it's fair to say, a more talented fighter than Makwan and Miyakani, but I still think he'll have trouble with him. But I think it would probably be at the grind out a decision and, avoid any sort of dangerous strikes. But yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Looking forward to it. Right, nice one. Been a pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed chatting about that one and obviously looking forward to seeing it as well. And next week, Thiago Santos versus Ankalaev. That's a fun one. So we'll look at that next week as well. Thank you very much for joining me and we'll speak soon.
All right, thank you.